The objective: to deliver the NBA to you like no other. News, play breakdowns, power rankings, storylines you never hear talked about anywhere else. It's all straight shots here, fired by straight shooters. S and Gunn. This is the Objective Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Objective Basketball Podcast. It's S, Lauren, joining me as always. I'm hyped because I feel better, ladies and gentlemen. I'm no longer sick. If you listen to last week's episode, you will see that I was rampant with a cold. It was tough. Lauren, how are you? How's everything going on your end?
I'm good. Life is good right now. It's kind of my summer. Started a little bit early, but
Cool.
Life is good. Yeah, I was gonna say you sound great. You sound vibrant and ready to rock. I like
when people say I sound vibrant. That's the
you
way
sound
to go.
Vibrant.
Weather in Texas right now is good or no good?
God, it probably depends who you ask.
Because you said it's your summer, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, here it's pretty meh. It's been like rainy, but we've got plans this weekend, so the weather needs to turn
rainy
on.
in Texas. That happens?
Yes. Oh, and especially in Houston. Oof.
I guess down south. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of just depends. It's kind of crazy all over, but if you live in Texas, you know just what I'm talking about.
Cool. I've always wanted to go. I know we're.
Oh, you gotta come on down.
I know. You know it's everything's bigger in Texas.
That's right.
I was actually my father-in-law, he made steaks yesterday for us, and then he was talking about the marinades. I'm like, in Texas they don't really use that much marinade on their steak. I think you guys just throw salt on there, right? Or is that just something someone told me once and I took it?
Somebody might have given you some bad information. You gotta get it. You gotta get it. You gotta get the dry rub. You gotta get the spices. It just depends on the cut of meat.
So
but
never mind.
In Texas, we don't joke about that. So
yeah. I've heard that that's true. You guys
Very
really
true.
focus on, the steak being pristine. I'm a big steak guy. I like steak. Okay. But you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not the best at cooking it. You guys will find on this podcast, I'm not the best at cooking in general. We'll learn. As you guys learn to figure me out, you will learn I'm not the greatest of cooks. Okay. Folks, there are some housekeeping things. Speaking of cooking, there are some housekeeping things that we got to deal with before we head to the NBA playoffs and talk about what's happening currently in the NBA playoffs. First things first, all rookie teams were announced. Going to pull up the list for you right now. First team all rookie was Paolo Banchero. No shock there since he's the rookie of the year. Jalen Williams, Oklahoma City Thunder. Not the Jalen, but Jalen Williams. Again, the distinction is one of them is a big man, one of them is a forward. Anyways, the forward was the all-rookie selection. Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz, Keegan Murray, Sacramento Kings, and Benedict Mathurin, Indiana Pacers, first Canadian since Brandon Clark 3 seasons ago to make it to the all-rookie team. All-rookie second team, Jaden Ivey from the Detroit Pistons, Jalen Duren from the Detroit Pistons, Jabari Smith Jr., Jeremy Sohan, and Tari Eason. There's a couple of snubs here that I feel like should be mentioned, but overall, how do you feel about the all-rookie teams? Do you feel like it works? Do you like it?
I don't love it.
Oh, you don't love it? Okay.
I don't love it. I mean, the first team I think we all kind of knew where that was headed.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm kind of surprised that Jaden Ivey didn't make first team.
That didn't make first team. Who over who? Mathurin or who would you have?
I would probably have said Mathurin. And that's. Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Objective Basketball Podcast. This is me putting on my objective hat now.
There you go.
Yes, he's a Canadian guy. I would have loved for Mathurin to win Rookie of the Year. That would have been a great story. But objectively, I think Jaden Ivey had the better rookie season, especially because Cade Cunningham went out. He was given so much responsibility. He had to toggle being sort of the one-man show for the Pistons for such a long time. And I think that's a hard place to be in when the Pistons infrastructure was just awful. I mean, they really didn't have something set in stone for him to work with. And for him to have his struggles, but then also figure out a lot of things offensively, getting to the rim, figuring out the stop and go stuff. not being as turnover heavy post January. I think those were important steps for Ivy. I think he just had a better rookie season given the context he was in.
Yeah,
I would probably say that's my one thing. There's another thing I have with the second team, but I wanted to get with you because you're like I'm not happy with it.
Yeah, I would say it probably has more to do with the second team, but I'm pretty disappointed in the Andrew Nembhard snub. I think that's
where I was going with it after that.
I think that I'm probably going to be scratching my head on that one for a little while, but that is the way it goes sometimes. The biggest thing that I want to say about all of this, especially when we've had our conversations about awards and certain things and the narratives being certain things that you remember when you're looking back, not necessarily some of these tinier details. What I want to draw attention to is as we have gone through these names, think back. If you're listening, think back to where each of these guys got drafted with the draft lottery right around the corner.
True.
Think about Jalen Williams being up in there, Walker Kessler, even Keegan. I mean, you've got guys. Benedict Mathurin is a better example than Keegan Murray, but you got these guys that you don't maybe are a little bit of question marks, or maybe you hope that they're this or you hope that they're that, and then they come in and they just explode on your team's situation and their role in their environment. So I think that's what's so exciting about all of this. So with the draft lottery right around the corner, I think that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the draft lottery. We talked about it at the end of the pod, but like, man, there's no, and I want to ask you a question towards the end of this podcast as well when it comes to the draft. I want to kind of do a thought experiment because you talked about Nembhard, and I agree. Andrew Nembhard not being on an all rookie team given where he was contextually. Like, look, this is a second round guy who probably was one of the best rookies all year. Consistency wise, he had his moments. He had the game winner against the Lakers. A lot of people will remember before. He grew up in my area. Andrew Nembhard.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So he's an Aurora, Ontario guy. So he is. It's very cool. You know, we used to see him at LA Fitness Ball.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I know. There's another guy also, Kevin Pangos. If you guys know, he was a two-way guy for the Cavaliers last year. Some international work, Gonzaga legend. Anyways, it's cool to see guys from this area develop and become these guys. And obviously you want a guy like that to get the recognition. He lost out on an all rookie nod by one single vote. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Another one is Shaedon Sharpe, another Canadian, obviously. He isn't from my area, but still, like, I really do think Shaedon had a very, very good second half of his rookie season, especially with the Trailblazers kind of headed towards the other direction. You knew that they were going to give more opportunity to Sharpe to develop his skills, fine-tune things. And I think he had some really, really impressive outings, honestly. I would probably have taken away one of the Houston guys. And that's just me. That's just where I sit on that. I'm not the highest on those guys. But again, I could be completely wrong on that many years from now. And I wanted to do a little bit of a thought experiment with you, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I went pick a year between 2015, 2016 or 2016, 2017. Which one of those years do you want to talk about? All rookie wise. Okay. It doesn't matter.
Let's do 16, 17.
16, 17. Okay. So the 2016, 2017, which is, if I'm doing my math correctly, that's about 7 years. Okay. 7 seasons of NBA basketball since then. Okay. The first team that year was Malcolm Brogdon, Dario Saric, Joel Embiid, Buddy Hield, Willie Hernangomez. Okay. The second team was Jamal Murray, Jaylen Brown, Marquise Chris, Brandon Ingram, and Yogi Ferrell. Now, looking back at
Yogi Ferrell.
Yeah, Yogi Ferrell. Yeah. That is Dallas Mavericks guard Yogi Ferrell, by the way. Looking back at that, obviously that's not the way this thing would go now. Jaylen Brown would be first team, Jamal Murray first team, Brandon Ingram first team, Joel Embiid obviously made it the first team. So we see how there are discrepancies when it comes to what these players actually ended up being. And Willie Hernangomez, God bless his soul, he's a first team all rookie member, but he is at the very best a backup center in the NBA, which isn't saying much. And he made all rookie. Okay. Some other guys just to throw out there. Karis LeVert got 2 votes. 2 single votes. Okay. Domantas Sabonis had 19 votes. He barely made it. He actually didn't make it to the all rookie team. which is crazy considering what Domantas Sabonis is today. DeJounte Murray had 3 total votes. Fred VanVleet had 1 single vote. There's some other ones here. Let's see if there's anybody else here. No, that's about it. Those are the real standouts that you look at and you're like, whoa, these are guys who are legit all-stars, rotation players, starters. Domantas Sabonis will be an all-NBA player. And I say that to say this. All-rookie, out of all the awards, really doesn't matter. It really,
as evidenced by the fact that I thought there were 3 all-rookie teams like 2 months ago. I think what's so interesting about it, as I'm looking at the guys that have missed, like we're seeing a lot more of Christian Braun right now with their Denver success, and people are getting to learn more about him and seeing his role. Jaden Hardy, obviously, we got a lot of Mavs Twitter people that are here. Everyone has seen kind of how he was not cracking the rotation, spending a lot of time in the G League. Second half of the season rolls around, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this guy's a legit player. And so there are a lot of, even Mark Williams, another great example out in Charlotte. There are lots of guys that you don't know the trajectory that their career is going to take, and you don't know how long they're going to be in their current situations, if that will change. You just never know. Mikal Bridges is a great example of switch situations and bam, like things just explode. Right. So the NBA is a crazy place. And it's always very intriguing retrospectively and even kind of, again, as the draft lottery is right around the corner.
I just realized this because, I saw Fred VanVleet's name and Jakob Poeltl also got a vote. Pascal Siakam didn't get a single vote. This is his draft class,
Wow.
And he did not get a single vote in this. So to just try to contextualize for you guys, for the people at home, okay, there was just no way that this was going to happen. I'm pretty sure this was his draft class, unless I'm losing my mind here. He was a 2017 NBA selection because it was I always forget if it's 2017 or 2018 with Siakam. Let me just go ahead and double check that real quick, because
I feel like it had to be 17 because they always Luka.
Yeah, 16 or 17. I'm saying because they
always.
Oh,
I see what you're saying.
They always compare him to. Well, there's always the career comparisons to Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Brandon Ingram, and I always wonder, okay, which because those are 2 different draft classes. But anyways. It was 2016, yes. So this would be his draft class. And look, he didn't even get a vote. He did not get a single vote. And I say this all to say, like, look, it doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. It really doesn't. We'll get into all defense in a second. But ladies and gentlemen, it is playoff time. Get in the game and make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Bet before the game or live and play on all your favorite team matchups. Head to sportsinteraction.com or download the app to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. So look. All rookies out of the way. We still have all defense. And, speaking of a Raptor, OG Anunoby, yes, in fact, was an all defense member. I'll go ahead and tell you the rest of the list. First team all defense was Evan Mobley, Brooke Lopez, Jaren Jackson Jr., the defensive player of the year, Drew Holiday, and Alex Caruso. In the all defensive second team, it was Draymond Green, Bam Adebayo, OG Anunoby, Dylan Brooks, and Derek White. There were some snubs here and there. Yeah, people were missed for sure. How do you feel about that list overall? By the way, I think the main jump here for me is no Giannis. Giannis did not make this, which is probably what, makes you're like, huh, okay, very interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. I remember I believe, if I remember correctly, we talked a lot about Marcus Smart back when we were kind of doing our predictions.
We were, yeah.
So I'm a little surprised. These selections are a little bit more difficult for me to necessarily say, oh, they got that wrong. Oh my God, They just clearly got that one wrong, because there are so many metrics that go into analyzing a guy's
and Marcus Smart was, by the way, the biggest snub.
Okay, I'm trying to find the
he was last.
The votes, but the votes and who got missed.
So I'll go ahead and mention some of the other people. Yeah, Marcus Smart, he missed it out by 20 points, and that's the biggest. Like that's the second guy. That's the first guy off the list.
Oh wow. Okay.
Mikal Bridges, he had 33 points. Jimmy Butler 23. Herb Jones had 15. Lou Dort had 9. And then it really starts to tail off there. Jaylen Brown, Matisse Thybulle, Anthony Edwards, et cetera, et cetera.
So a pretty big jump then from the guys that made it to the snubs.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, because they split it up in a very weird way here in this thing between guards, forwards, and centers. God. So in terms of the biggest snub, yes, it was Giannis, who had 60 points and didn't end up making it. Jaden McDaniels of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he was also a consideration for forward. He didn't make it with 40, and then Anthony Davis with 9. In the center position, Nick Claxton and Joel Embiid didn't make it, either one of those. They were the kind of runner-ups, so to speak. But the other guys I mentioned earlier were just the guards. So, got it. I mean, I like the list. Yeah. I think from what we've seen, it's funny because these lists come out in hindsight, right? And what we've seen from Dylan Brooks over the last couple of weeks, everybody's like, how dare you, right? Like,
yeah, that's
what is going on here?
Yeah.
I think it's funny because, like, it's an all defense award, right?
Right.
It's not an all player award. All NBA will come out tomorrow, and we will talk about that on the podcast on Thursday or Friday. But when it comes to all defense, they really are just focusing on the defense. And Dylan Brooks was a great defender, still is a good defender. He's a great perimeter defender. If there's one quality that Dylan Brooks brings to a basketball court positively, it's the defensive end of the court. So you can't, like, yes, I get it. It's fun to make fun of the guy. It's fun to have him be the butt of the joke. He is right now the heel of the entire NBA fan base. But he is a good defender, and he was rewarded as such. When it comes to OG Anunoby, I assume the Raptors folks who are listening right now probably want to hear a little bit about that. I think OG was absolutely deserving of this. I would have been very surprised if OG didn't make the all defense, teams, if you will. I've seen some conversation about, he should have been first team. And I will clarify for the people who may not be understanding, he was not in consideration for a guard spot. He was only in consideration for forward spots. And the forward spots for the first teams were all 3 Defensive Player of the Year finalists in Jaren Jackson Jr., Evan Mobley, and Brook Lopez. So I saw some people when I posted it earlier saying, oh man, how can Alex Caruso make it over OG Anunoby? They're not competing in the same category, brother. It does not apply because they're not competing in the same position. It is Anunoby as a forward and Caruso as a guard. And by the way, just to talk about Alex Caruso real quick, the Bulls had a great defense all year. I believe they finished in the top 5 defensively, or at the very least top 10. I got to go check the numbers again, but it was definitely a top 10 defense. And that's a roster that boasted Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine. And yet still they had a competent defense. A lot of that has to do with the point of attack and what Alex Caruso did there. Navigating through screens, the rear side contests, the way he's fighting through stuff, the crazy swipe downs, the hands that he has, the deflections that he would do off ball. Alex Caruso legitimately is one of the best defenders in the NBA. God, the Lakers miss him right now. And I mean, when it comes to his, whatever, if he deserved it or not, I think he absolutely deserved it. He probably deserved it a couple times when he was a Laker too. So I think that's a ridiculous notion to be like, he didn't deserve it, yada, yada, yada. I think all these guys were good defenders. Nothing really pops out to me other than Giannis. I think that's the one where you're like, interesting that he didn't get the votes given what his resume is as a defender, given what people think of him as a defender. You would imagine that, that kind of holds some weight for voters. I remember in the 2018-2019 season with the Raptors, Kawhi Leonard ended up being the very first all-defense member in franchise history. And it's crazy to me because Kawhi wasn't a great defender that year. He wasn't the best, but he did get that because of his resume, because of who Kawhi is, because of how well the Raptors did, because of how good of a defensive team the Raptors were. But a lot of that wasn't because of Kawhi. It was because, hey, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, you had guys like Kyle Lowry, who's a good defender, Pascal Siakam, Danny Green. They had a very, very good sound defensive team, but Kawhi got the nod because it's Kawhi,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think sometimes it is based on your reputation. Like a lot of people will bring it up with Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, I believe, had 9 all defense nods, and Kobe was a great defender, but 9 all defense nods, people bring that in question. They're like, man, like, was he really a 9-time all defense member, or was this just a resume thing for him? So I think that's fair to say with some of these awards.
Yeah, I think that especially this one, kind of going back to the idea that there are so many metrics that go into it. Sometimes I do think that there's an element of, okay, well, how do we differentiate? Not saying that you're always going to give the vote to the guy that has the bigger, I guess, the more packed resume. I'm not saying that by any means, but I do think that in voter mind, that those things do come into play. To back you up there, the Bulls were 5th this year in defensive rating.
Thank you.
So I think that does absolutely carry some weight. So I think it's fun when you see guys like maybe for the casual NBA fan, and like you said, now, especially as the playoffs go a certain way, you kind of get to see these guys a little bit more. But to see someone like Derek White in there that maybe you are not that familiar with Derek White, I think that things like that are cool. And so while on one hand, yeah, you're going to get the resume voting a lot of times, just like I'm sure there are a lot of people unhappy that, oh, well, Anthony Davis, are you seeing what he's doing? Are you seeing what he's doing? And it's like, well, okay, but like, you know what I mean? If you're looking at the categories of voters or excuse me, of candidates, and you're looking at how the voting went, who was eligible for the different category, like everything, the way it all kind of filters out, especially when you're looking at the total points kind of discrepancy, I think things for the most part, went the way that they were supposed to. So,
right.
It's an interesting award, but I think a lot of guys all deserving, and it's fun to see first time defensive selections.
Absolutely,
that's always fun. I think that's important.
Yeah. Also, it's going to be interesting next year, especially with all defense, especially with all NBA, because of the minimum games requirement.
Right, and positionless too as well, right? Or
yes, absolutely, and positionless too. So like, you go and you look at these guys, and I'd have to go back and see how many games exactly they played. But Jaren Jackson Jr. probably hits that list. I'm not sure. I think OG Anunoby does hit the requirement as well. Actually, I think all of these guys, save for maybe Draymond, didn't hit the minimum requirement list. I have to go back and double check that. But that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. It's like, hey, this guy has to play 65 games minimum now. And that's a huge thing moving forward for Anthony Davis, because they have that threshold. And AD is a guy who historically in the regular season has not been a very healthy player. So you have to question, who these guys will project forward, what these all defense and all NBA nods will be, considering the fact that some of these guys just end up missing a bunch of games, right? Especially LeBron moving forward, KD moving forward, James Harden moving forward, who just flashed onto my screen. There's guys who are getting older, are probably not going to play as many games, and that's going to open up the room for another team or another player. Okay. Let's talk about playoffs in a new segment I like to call Let's Be Idiots, okay? Or Let's Sound Like Idiots, okay? I don't know if we have a producer thing doing a womp, womp, womp. But I say Let's Be Idiots because we're recording this. It is a Tuesday afternoon, evening, actually. As we record, the Sixers and Celtics are about to tip off. The Suns and the Nuggets are about to tip off a little bit later. By the time you listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, we will sound like idiots, okay? And that's why I want to do Let's Be Idiot segment for a second.
There we go.
So when it comes to the Sixers and when it comes to the Celtics, Game 5, 2-2, I mean, oh my God, Game 4 was unreal. It was so unreal that my wife, Mina, was watching it with me, and she shrieked. She screamed when the shot went in, and she's like, I can't believe it. And she's not someone who even remotely knows the stakes at hand for the Sixers or the pressure that the Sixers are feeling. And now they're tipping off. They literally tip off just happened. The Sixers and Celtics will face off in Game 5 after an unbelievable Game 4 that went to overtime. Bad mistake by the Celtics to help off the strong side. There was a lot of craziness. Lauren, I guess my question to you is, who do you think ends up winning the series and this game, Game 5?
God, this is a great name for this segment, because
Thank
I
you.
swear to God,
on the fly.
every freaking time we try to predict what happens, what's your gut for the next game, we're wrong. And so I'm gonna say, for the sake of entertainment, I'm going to say it's going to be Philly.
Philly? You're calling it?
Philly's got it. I'm going for Philly because if I'm wrong, then the odds of a game 7 looking pretty good. Who doesn't like a game 7? So I'm going to go with Philly. I think that last game, that ending, that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. I think that's what makes the playoffs so high stakes and so entertaining, which is why I was actually having a conversation today about Philadelphia and how when you look at them and you watch them play right now, this isn't the Philadelphia team that we have gotten in years past. And obviously you got the roster changes, you've got the Tyrese Maxey step forward, sure. But like in terms of engagement and just being absolutely locked in on your mission and realizing the potential that you have, especially this year with your MVP, like it's just so high stakes. It's incredible. So for part of those reasons, I'm going with Philly tonight.
There is not a better opportunity for the Sixers team to win a championship than this season. There isn't. There is no better opportunity than this season, especially with the Bucks losing. You know, you have Boston on the ropes here. It's 2-2. They have an actual opportunity, even despite Joel Embiid's injury. This is a huge opportunity. This is one of those moments where you'll look back on 10 years from now and say, man, that was the years the Sixers could have done it. But they didn't, or they did. Whatever. We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
I think, have you been following the Corgi, by the way?
Oh, the Corgi that picks the games with the ball?
Yes, the Corgi.
A little bit. A little bit. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen it.
It's all good. So look, as a little bit of a recap of that Lakers-Warriors game from last night, or for the people listening 2 nights ago, a lot of Warriors fans are taking solace in the fact that the Corgi picked them to come back from 3-1 and to win the series. So the Corgi technically predicted the Warriors to win, coming back from 3-1, winning game 7. The Corgi hasn't been very accurate, though. That's another thing I'll say. The Corgi also said that the Sixers would end up losing this game, but would win in game 6 and in game 7 to go on and win this series. So I'm just saying the Corgi might be looking like an idiot after this. We'll see. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say the Celtics win this game. I think they're at home. It's one of those things where like Boston is just going to play incredibly well at home. I've talked so much over this postseason about how important role players are, how crucial role players are. We just saw Lonnie Walker score 15 points in the fourth quarter, almost outscore the Warriors in a game 4 to extend the Lakers lead in the series and make it 3-1. Role players are so crucial. They're the ones that'll help you steal a game. And I think the same thing applies here with the Sixers and Celtics. You'll be able to steal a game at home. I'm not even sure if that's considered stealing a game here. I mean, the Celtics are favored, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say the Celtics win it tonight. I also think the Celtics win the series. Sadly, I really do think that this is Philly's year, so to speak. And if they don't, make this opportunity count, who knows what'll happen with James Harden, with Joel Embiid, with all those guys moving forward. So another series, let's sound like idiots for the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets. Okay. That was an incredible game. We didn't really get to talk about the whole Matt Ishbia of it all and Nikola Jokic pushing him or shoving him, if you will. Matt Ishbia, did a little bit of a flop, which was funny. I think this is like the most, you're probably used to this because Mark Cuban is such a, he's always courtside, or Steve Ballmer is always courtside, right? But like Matt Ishbia is new to the game, he's really doesn't know. So it's just interesting to see he's been this is a very funny way to be introduced to the NBA audience, if you will, as the guy who got shoved by Nikola Jokic, the 2-time MVP. Mm-hmm. Jokic won't be facing any suspensions. He just got a fine of, I believe, $25,000. Sure, he'll sign that with his horse's pen. That's fine.
That's so true, though.
But the other side of this is that the Suns are relying so much on KD and Booker. And we've talked about this as like their Achilles heel in a lot of ways. It's like, are they relying on them too much? When is this going to happen? And like I mentioned earlier, Landry Shamet, a role player, ended up stealing a game for them in game 4. He scored 17 points off of the bench and ended up helping the Suns beat the Nuggets in game 4 to tie the series. And now it's a series, ladies and gentlemen. It could go either way. And the way Booker and Durant are playing, I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of favor Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say because, you know, Denver just has the better foundation. They have the better role players. They have the better rotation. They obviously have Nikola Jokic, who played out of his mind in that game, dropping 51 points, a career high. My main thing when it comes to Phoenix is that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are now used to the Denver Nuggets coverage defensively. They know what's coming at them. They know when the double teams are coming. They know how those double teams are being set. And unless the Nuggets completely change their approach to guarding Durant and Booker, I think Phoenix ends up winning this series.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I also think Phoenix wins tonight for let's be called idiots type thing. Yes.
Yeah. I do feel like Phoenix wins tonight because I do feel like the momentum is favoring them. I feel like right now they're in a good spot in terms of feeling confident and kind of maximizing, like you said, on the adjustments, how Denver is covering them, what they're throwing at KD and Book. I still am kind of leaning. It's really, really hard for me to get past the continuity and the foundation that we've talked about. And so I go back to what I said, I want to say maybe when we were previewing this series or maybe after one of the first games, when I said it's much more difficult for me to have faith in a Phoenix depth chart. You mentioned Landry Shamet in the game that he had. It's hard for me to believe in a Landry Shamet and Ish Wainwright. These guys consistently at Bismack Biyombo to have an incredibly effective game, not necessarily just with the scoring, but you know what I mean? And so because of that, it's really, really hard for me to buy in, especially because it's a long series and it just, you're to me, it's almost like you're asking, I don't want to say you're asking too much because I don't think you can successfully continue to throw things and change things and throw them at KD and Book. I don't think you can guard them. I just think that they're that talented when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. But because I do think that they're going to have success in this series and come out on top, they're going to have to be able to get enough from the quote unquote other guys. And I can't get there.
Other guys more on Denver than Phoenix. I think that's completely fair. I think that's entirely fair. I also know that Devin Booker is playing on levels that we just have not seen before as a basketball player. Like genuinely, it's Michael Jordan levels. It's, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like that's how incredible Devin Booker has been. I wrote about it. You guys can go check it out on the SDPN website. But Booker, what he's doing efficiency-wise, what he's doing as a scorer, as a playmaker, throughout these playoffs, in the Clippers series and now in the Nuggets series, it's exceptional. It's unbelievable to watch. And I'm just not sure Denver has an answer anymore. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. It's like sometimes it comes down to which superstar will end up superstarring more. And it just feels like the Suns superstars are they're just a slight bit ahead right now. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you've got two of them, and then it's always like, oh, KD is the head of the snake now. KD is the head of the snake. But like you mentioned, Book playing at this level. Yeah. Like, yeah, Book is great and Book can score, and we all knew that. But when you have him right there with KD, right on par with KD, that's incredibly difficult to stop. And for Phoenix, this is exactly what they had in mind. They knew Book was capable of this. This is exactly what they wanted. And so for everybody else, it's like, okay, well, what can you do to try and mitigate that? And I'm not sure. I mean, with Denver specifically, we've talked about Denver, but even looking at some of these other teams that they could have faced and could face moving forward, it's going to be very difficult for them to find answers as well.
Okay, so now to the games that are happening tonight, the games that we actually don't know what will happen by the time you're listening to this podcast. Look, the Miami Heat versus the New York Knicks, Game 5 in New York. Knicks season is on the line. I'm not going to lie to you. I just think that the Knicks have been out-nicked by the Miami Heat. They just have lost the physicality battle here. It's funny because the Eastern Conference has become like a totally different ballgame than the Western Conference in terms of how the basketball style is being played. Both the Celtics and Sixers series and the Knicks Heat series have been incredibly physical. They've been incredibly low scoring in terms of output. I don't know. I think it's been a very, very different look between the Eastern Conference playoffs and the Western Conference playoffs. And when it comes to the Heat and the Knicks, I really do think that this is probably the end of the road for the Knicks. I don't think that Miami will rest on its laurels and just be like, oh, it's all good. We're going to go ahead and, we'll see you guys in Miami for game 6. I wouldn't be surprised given New York's arena, given how incredible Madison Square Garden is. But I think based on what we saw in game 4, which was just an outright dominance physically from the Miami Heat, I mean, it felt like they had a million offensive rebounds in that fourth quarter to just suck the life out of New York's comeback. I think Jalen Brunson is still dealing with a little bit of an ankle issue, and it's bothering him. It's not letting him get to the rim as much as possible. It's not, the stop and go stuff is so important on your ankles, and he just hasn't been as effective in that area. The ISO stuff, and Miami, to credit to the Heat, they've done an incredible job to try to contain him. And Julius Randle has just been an absolute shell of himself in these playoffs again. And I think that's probably more a discussion for the offseason and our Knicks eulogy, if we will, in a couple of days. But when it comes to this series, I think it's over, and I think it's over tonight. Do you feel the same way?
I don't feel that it's over tonight, really, just because, wow, God, it's so hard because, like you said, Brunson and Randall with these nagging injuries, it's hard. I don't want to count them out. I think that the season that they've had, it's hard for me to just count them out because for so long I've counted the Knicks out. I've said they don't got it. They don't have the experience. RJ Barrett is going to crack. He had a phenomenal game last game. Mm-hmm. And I said that for so long, and that I'm with you. I think Miami has it figured out. I think Miami's coming out of this series. But I think Madison Square Garden, I think there's just going to be a little extra juice in the air.
Fair.
Just the back on the grit. I think they're going to have the grit because they know their backs are on the line, and they don't want the gentleman's sweep. So I'm giving them one more, but I do not think it goes to 7. I don't see that one bit.
Yeah. On the other side of this, it is absolutely insane that the Miami Heat will have gone to 3 conference finals in the last 4 seasons. Talk about last season.
That is crazy.
Talk about the NBA bubble. And then you talk about this season after the series is over. And barring a miraculous comeback, look, we've seen crazier things happen in the NBA, teams that have been down and out and somehow pull it up, right? But, figure it out. But watching this series, I just don't see a path for the Knicks to do that, especially given how ineffective their stars have been. If the stars were playing great, if Brunson and Randall were playing really, really phenomenal basketball and the Knicks were just, losing these series on sheer luck or losing these games on sheer luck and sheer shooting luck and whatnot, and like shot selection and maybe the physicality wasn't there, etc. But it really just has been like an outclassment. They've just been outclassed by the Miami Heat. Eric Spoelstra just has been incredible in terms of figuring out what kind of defense makes Brunson and Randall work really well. Follow Brady Hawk on Twitter. Brady Hawk is incredible. He does a lot of great work in terms of dissecting what Spo does every day. And I'm sure that really bothers Eric Spoelstra because every day it's like, hey, this is what you do, my guy. But look, Spoelstra has just been dissecting the Knicks all series long. And I don't see a pathway for the Knicks to make this comeback. I really don't.
Yeah. I think that's the key.
The other series, though, I feel completely different in. And it's just like, we were talking about this in our pre-production meeting. Folks, it's not a pre-production meeting, by the way. We literally sit here and maybe talk for 3-4 minutes before we get onto this podcast and talk to you guys. But Drew was talking in our pre-production meeting, producer Drew, and, he was kind of asking me, hey, man, like, what do you think? What do you think? Do you think there is a real chance that the Golden State Warriors can come back from down 3-1 and, make this miraculous comeback? Can they do it? And my answer is yes, absolutely. If there's any team in the NBA, and maybe in NBA history, that can come down, be down 3-1 and come back, it's this Golden State Warriors team. Not specifically this version of them, but the fact that you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, you have guys around the roster who can potentially contribute, maybe catch, fire. Maybe Jordan Poole appears at some point in time again in this series. There is a possibility. There is the potential here more than there ever has been for almost any series ever, in my opinion, because the Lakers stole one in game 4. They had, I tweeted this earlier, but the Lakers had zero business winning that game. Like, genuinely zero business winning that game. The first half, the Warriors absolutely carved them up, destroyed them on these high pick and rolls, drawing Anthony Davis out of the paint, making it a lot harder for him to be that rim protector. And they carved them up. Steph Curry had like 8 assists in the first half just from finding his teammates, finding open shots, and they were getting such good looks. What happened was the Lakers started attacking Curry on defense, making him work. And then that shot Curry's legs. He started to get tired, started to get more exhausted. He couldn't create that, he couldn't create that downhill stuff that he was doing in the first half from those high pick and rolls because he was getting gassed. And that changed the game. Lonnie Walker came in, gave the Lakers the exact punch they need. I talked about stealing games earlier. They definitely stole that game. And now they're in a position to win. But I still think there's a very good chance the Warriors can come back and at least make this a very interesting series. Do you think the Warriors, what is your percentage chance you're giving that the Warriors lose tonight's game?
That the Warriors lose tonight's game?
Yeah, they're down. Look, game 5 in Golden State, facing elimination. All the questions we've talked about in the offseason about Draymond, Jordan Poole, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers. Do you think they lose this game?
I don't think they lose. I don't think they lose this game. I'm with you. I think that they could absolutely come back and win this one or win this whole series. I'm not counting them out at all. As far as a percentage on losing,
yeah, give me a percentage.
20?
20? I'm giving it 0.
0. You are.
There is.
I swear
no
to God.
chance.
I swear to God, if this is the first and biggest looking like an idiot segment,
yeah,
because the Lakers just dominate and wipe the floor with the Warriors. But I'm with you. I do. In all seriousness, I do think that the Warriors, you're at home. You're facing you got to get it done. You got to get it done. I think they're prepared to get it done. So
how many times has this team been back against the wall?
Absolutely.
Look, they haven't lost a Western Conference playoff series since 2014. Do you know what I was doing in 2014? I was driving a Toyota Camry to school in Scarborough and bumping Nothing Was the Same by Drake and thinking I was heartbroken. That's what I was doing in 2014. 9 years later, look at me now, ladies and gentlemen. It's different. It is so different to contextualize how long ago that was. That's how long the Warriors have not lost a Western Conference playoff series. They've only lost in the finals to 2 different teams, the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's the only 2 series they've lost. This core group has only lost 2 series. That's why we're not quitting on them. That's why it's impossible to say, even when they're down 3-1, that this team doesn't have a chance. And that's why I'm saying that the Warriors, there is zero chance that they lose in game 5. I have no doubt in my mind.
They don't even need to show up. You can just mark it down as a win.
The Lakers don't even need to show up. They could just be like, dude, let's just add it to the tally and meet again in game 6. Go back. Yeah, I saw. It's funny. I saw Jared Greenberg, maybe I don't know who it was on ESPN, saying that Mike Greenberg. There you go. They should just rest LeBron and Anthony Davis for game 5. Okay, yes, that's a ridiculous statement. They shouldn't just rest him. They should at least give it an attempt. But if it's like down 20 at half, rest them for the rest of the half. Why? Why would you even? Why? What is the reason for trying at the end of that game? I don't understand why. I think, contextually speaking, I think that makes sense. Now, game 6 in LA, who knows? That's the one where you're like, okay, now it's back home in LA.
That's going to be a big one.
Lakers role players have obviously played great. They got that Lonnie Walker contribution. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And look, we'll see what happens tonight, ladies and gentlemen, in another segment of We Look Like Idiots. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to finish up with something Victor Wembanyama related.
Oh, boy.
So there was a lot of talk about how hyped this Wembanyama draft lottery really is and how much people are looking forward to it. How hyped Victor Wembanyama is as a prospect. Some people will say LeBron James. He's as hyped as LeBron James, and there hasn't been a player since LeBron that has been as hyped as this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some people will say Zion Williamson was as hyped as LeBron James, and Zion was the guy that, hey, no, like maybe even Zion's hype was more than Victor Wembanyama. Some people will say Anthony Davis. That was another guy that had a lot of hype to him. Andrew Wiggins was another guy that had a lot of hype to him. Greg Oden. There have been other iterations of this type of hype. Some that have panned out, some that have not. But my question to you is, do you think that those are as big as what Wemby's hype is right now? Or do you think that Wemby's is the most amount of hype, if you will, since LeBron?
I always do really try to take out the recency bias, but I do think that that this is the most hype that we've seen since LeBron James. And the one that, at least in my recent memory, and I don't want to say again recent memory, but the one that stands out the most to me is the Zion one. There has been so much hype around Zion just from the sheer physicality of him since I think it was 8th grade when he really started to get this public coverage. Yeah. But it was, and this is not a knock on Zion, but a lot of it was the fact that the way he was built and the physicality. But what we're seeing with Wemby is the talent and the skill and the fact that he's doing things that players right now are like years into the league trying to figure out how to do, at that level or you know what I mean? And so it's, when you're looking at it, to me, it's almost like apples and oranges with where the hype is coming from. And so I do think that there is more hype here, because with Wemby specifically, and even with Zion, everyone knew Zion was going number one, but at the same time, I feel like there was also, not that everyone knew Zion was going number one, but there was also this like, well, look at these guys and who's going to have the most successful career, or who's going to have, there were other names, and there are still other names in this draft. Obviously it's loaded, but when we're talking about Wemby, we've been talking about the number one pick of the 2023 draft. We've been talking about that for a minute
now. A little bit. It's been a while.
Everyone knows that this could be, you had an NBA scout the other day say that this is going to increase a franchise's value by $500 million.
I actually think that's right, by the way.
I kind of do too. So I think it's, I do think that that's the case. What about you? Where are you at?
I agree with you, which is why the Charlotte Hornets will not be selling until they figure out if they get the number one pick. We talked about this a while ago. I agree with that. But why would they, So I agree. The only thing that I think helps Zion's case in the hype train is the fact that he's American, is the fact that he was here. He was front and center for everybody to watch in high school and then in college. And he was part of the hype machine so early because of that. He gets the coverage from the ESPNs, from the Foxes, from all those different places. I really do think that is a big factor here. Mm-hmm. But in terms of hype, I can't believe what I'm seeing hype, I think Wemby takes the cake. There's an argument to be had that, like, look, if Wemby was a kid from, I don't know, South Florida who was raised and like ended up being a massive player, like same type of player, there's an argument that he would have even more hype than LeBron James. That's crazy it is. And I think the American versus European thing is a little bit of an important distinction to make, because he wasn't a part of the hype train because of the fact that he was an international player, right? And I think that's an important distinction to make, because look, Zion hype versus Wemby hype and LeBron hype, it really, in the end, it doesn't matter. It will come down to who wins number one, who gets that number one pick. And if it's a team that jumps,
oh my God,
if it's a team that jumps, it's going to be mayhem. If it's not Houston, if it's not San Antonio, if it's not Detroit, if it's not Charlotte or Portland, it will be mayhem. Absolute mayhem. And by the way, that's what happened with the Zion draft. If you guys remember.
Oh, we remember, and here in Dallas, we remember very well.
Absolutely. So God. Like, this is not something new. This is not something that is going to be unexpected. It will be shocking, but it won't be unexpected. Lauren, before we head out, any parting words? Anything you got?
Man, get your Mavs Twitter, get your popcorn. Get your popcorn a week from tonight. It's going to be good.
Absolutely. I know. Look, Raptors Twitter is doing the same thing. They got a 1% chance at number one, a 4% chance at top four. We'll take it.
Maybe we'll jump. Maybe we'll pull a Memphis, New Orleans 1-2.
Hey, I'm cool. I'm cool with it. I'm happy.
Too.
Get Luka a side mate, get Scotty a side mate. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tapping into the Objective Basketball Podcast. Do the rating, do the subscribing, do the things you guys always do. We appreciate you guys for tapping in on YouTube, listening, watching our beautiful faces, and watching that Grand Budapest Hotel poster not be crooked. It's really, really bothering me. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tapping into the Objective Basketball Podcast. We will see you guys later. Take care.
Follow hosts at Just S Baraheni on all socials and at the Lauren Gunn on Twitter. The Objective Basketball Podcast, delivering the NBA to you like no other.